Oracle is here in the house. My name is Devin, and I am with the Oro Valley Historical Society, and we try to do these talks at least once a month, and I see some familiar faces from last month, so thanks for coming back. This month, we've got somebody who came from a far distance. GPS said an hour and 15 minutes, so she's here. Marti Conroy is on the board of the Empire Ranch Foundation and has been on that board for a long time and knows
9 years.
And knows a lot of stuff that she's going to be talking about today. How the ranch was started, how it grew, how it's a little bit smaller now, and just give us some good history about it. And we look forward to hearing from Marti, right?
Thank you. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
I'm delighted to have this opportunity to tell a few tales about the historic Empire Ranch located in the heart of 45,000-acre Las Cienecas National Conservation Area just north of Sonoita. My tales will introduce you to 4 families, 2 companies, 1 government agency, and 1 nonprofit organization. And they've all played a role in the Empire Ranch's historic past and evolving history. Our first family came to the scene in November of 1875. Envision 23-year-old Walter Lennox Vail in Tucson's Cosmopolitan Hotel, writing to his younger brother, Edward Ned Vail. Walter, originally from New Jersey, traveled to Tucson from California to explore the possibility of making his fortune by ranching in southern Arizona. I reached this place 3 days ago pretty well tired out, but considering the trip, I think I was in pretty good condition when I reached Tucson. I have been trying ever since I came here to hire horses for a trip through the country, but have not been able to do anything until this morning, which was to buy a mule. I was very much disappointed after I got here to find that it is impossible to buy any land unless you find a man who has been on his ground for 3 years. His title is of no account, and as the country is all new on account of the Indian trouble, such places are very hard to find. I feel positive from all I hear that there is a fine grassland in this territory as there is in the world. I think myself that it is destined to be one of the richest states in the Union. It wasn't until the following year that Walter was able to return to Arizona with sufficient funds and a partner, Englishman Herbert Hislop, to embark on his ranching venture. In August, they purchased a 2,160-acre homestead owned by Edward Fish, Simon Silverberg. Edward Fish was an entrepreneur that had a house here in Tucson, and I think part of that house belongs to the Museum of Art.
Yes, the whole house.
Okay. Included in the purchase price was a 4-room, flat-topped adobe house. There were windows, but no glass. Everything was open. A central breezeway or zaguan bisected the rooms of the house and led to an adjoining adobe wall corral. In October of 1876, John Harvey, another Englishman born in Bermuda, joined the partnership, contributing very much needed capital for addition land and stock. Thus the Vail, Hislop, and Harvey Company began, though it was most often referred to as the English boys' outfit. The homestead included a much valued and critical component to ranching, dependable water from the Cienega Creek. Yet the partners knew that in order to succeed, they must expand their stock and land holdings. The first purchase was a neighboring ranch, which included a quarter section of land and a flock of sheep. Probably was a land that they had to give up because they couldn't pay the taxes, couldn't add on anything, which is what was required from having a homestead. In January of 1877, they purchased 733 cattle near Benson, Arizona, and disposed of the sheep. Later that year, Walter traveled to John Chisholm's ranch in New Mexico and purchased 40 Durham bulls. The first of the English boys to depart in 1878 was Herbert Hislop. He never adjusted to the rigors of frontier life and was worried about financial matters at home. In a letter to his sister, he expressed concerns about the lack of peace with his neighbors. We thought at first that it was the Indians he was concerned about, but we think it was actually the neighbors that had other ranches nearby. Walter purchased Hislop's shares with money borrowed from his Aunt Anna Vail, and the corporate name was changed to the Vail and Harvey Company. In 1879, during a tour of the ranch's northern pastures, prospector and Empire Ranch cowhand John Dillon pointed out some likely silver-bearing formations in the Empire ranches. And this would be clear up there on the top. When you're coming on I-10 and you turn to go south on 83, up there is a big satellite dish that you can see is on the left as you're going towards Sonoita. That's where the Total Wreck mine is. So it wasn't close. Vail, Harvey, and Dillon registered a claim for the Total Wreck mine, which proved to be successful. Developed in partnership with Walter's uncle Nathan Vail, the Total Wreck mine became full operations in 1883 under the direction of Ned Vail. At its peak, the Total Wreck Mining Company boasted over 50 residences and commercial establishments. Revenue from the mine, over $500,000 between 1881 and 1887, fueled the expansion of the ranch, I should say Empire Ranch, to over 100,000 acres. It went from the bottom of the Rincons all the way to the Mexican border. That's a map of the places that he bought. John Harvey left the partnership in 1881, selling his shares to Walter, who continued to develop and expand the business in partnership with other Vail family members and the Empire Land and Cattle Company. That same year, Walter returned to New Jersey to marry his longtime sweetheart, Margaret Newhell, and bring her to live on the Empire Ranch. Margaret chose to live at the ranch full-time instead of setting up a home in Tucson, as was often the custom. The Empire was the first home of 6 of Walter and Margaret's 7 children. As the Empire Ranch expanded, so did the buildings at the ranch headquarters. By 1882, the original 4 rooms of the ranch house had grown to 22. Rooms for offices and staff were added behind the original 4-room structure, and a gable-roofed Victorian addition became the family home. And outbuildings were constructed to support the ranching operations. A little more than 10 years after starting the Empire, Walter began to look for pastures in Southern California to ease overgrazing concerns. To fund his expansion, he took on a new partner, Carol Gates. Oops. No, that one. By the early 1890s, when drought greatly affected southern Arizona, the importance of the California land holdings was clear. the Empire Ranch became a breeder operations that supplied the ranches in California. In 1896, the Vail family moved their home and business offices to Los Angeles. Management of the Empire Ranch was initially left under the direction of a foreman, Haddon McFadden. I know, mother and dad. Harry Hafner managed the Empire Ranch from 1902 to 1905. Ironically, after surviving the Apache Wars and the hardships of remote ranching life in southern Arizona, Walter's life was cut short when he was killed by a streetcar in Los Angeles in 1906. No estate either. Walter's 17-year-old son, William Banning Vail, was sent to Arizona to learn the business and eventually take over operation of the empire. Banning married a native Tucsonan, Laura Perry, in 1913, and they raised 3 children on the Empire Ranch. Laura, who was called Dusty, William, known as Bill, and Tom. Banning and his family lived on the ranch until 1928, when our second family, the Boyces, came on the scene. The Empire Ranch was purchased by the Chiricahua Ranches Company, successor to the well-known Chiricahua Cattle Company. The 3 Boyce brothers, Henry, Charles, and Frank Seymour, were respected ranchers known for their promotion of the Hereford breed of cattle in the Southwest. Frank Boyce and his wife Mary moved to the Empire Ranch in 1928, while the other brothers managed nearby operations that the family had purchased at the same time. Frank and Mary became sole owners of the Empire Ranch in 1951. Frank managed the empire for 28 years until his death in 1956. An engineer with degrees from Occidental College and MIT, he liked nothing better than building or repairing ranch equipment. He served as president of the Arizona Cattle Growers Association from 1935 to 36 and was elected to the Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma in 1958. Mary Boyce, who is in the middle there, was also an avid and talented gardener. She participated in all the facets of ranch life, including roundup, sorting, and shipping. The house was surrounded by a lush lawn bordered with flower beds of tulips, irises, and roses. Huge trees provided ample shade. During the Boyce period, rooms in the Victorian portion of the house were remodeled. Propane and eventually natural gas was piped into the house. A large electric walk-in refrigeration unit was installed. Plumbing was upgraded, and cement stucco was applied to the exterior house walls. Up until that time, you saw nothing but adobe. A swimming pool was installed south of the house and became the focal point for family gatherings and parties. During these years, the Boyces hosted numerous film stars, including John Wayne, as Hollywood romanticized the West in films such as Red River. That's one of 52 movies and TV series that were filmed in that area. A week ago, we showed Monty Walsh, and it was a movie Under the Stars that the loft brings out their screen, and it's a free movie, and you get to sit out and watch it. I'm off a page. Frank and Mary had 2 sons, Frank, known as Pancho, and Robert, known as Bob. As Pancho and Bob became adults and helped to manage the ranch, additional accommodations were required. A surplus house from the Army base at Fort Huachuca was purchased and installed west of the main house. Bob and his wife Miriam lived there, and he called it Bob's Casita. It actually, those two windows on the right, that was part of it that was not there. So it really was a casita. Two of Bob and Marion's 4 children were born during the time they lived on the Empire. In 1956, the family relocated to manage the /S Ranch in Globe, Arizona. Pancho and his wife Sherry initially made their home in the small Grove house located northwest of the ranch house, which is where, when I mentioned about that he bought that ranch, we think that was the house that was on that land. So it actually is older than the Empire Ranch. In the early 50s, they moved to a newly remodeled house constructed on the hill north of the original ranch house. Pancho and Sherry raised 4 children, Steve, Kitty, Sherry, and Carol, on the Empire. In 1969, the Boyces sold the Empire Ranch to Gulf American Corporation, which planned a large residential community development on the Empire. It was supposed to have about 150,000 houses. Gulf American contracted with the Boyce family to continue managing the Empire under the lease agreements for the land, for the grass. Pancho's son Steve took over full responsibility for ranching on the Empire after untimely death in 1973. That's Faith. She is now the president of the Empire Ranch, and her dad. Thankfully, Gulf America's development plans were not realized, and in 1975, they sold the Empire to Animax Mining Company. Animax discontinued the Boyces' grazing lease on the Empire. Enter the third family, the Donaldsons. Animax leased the Empire to rancher John Donaldson. John's son Mac and his wife Billy moved to the Empire to partner with John. Both Donaldson families, including Mac and Billy's children, Alexa, Sam, and Renee, lived on the Empire until 1988. In 1988, the U.S. Bureau of Land Management acquired the Empire Ranch headquarters and surrounding 42,000 acres through a series of land swaps, creating the then named Empire Seneca Resource Conservation Area. Legislation signed in December of 2000 designated the lands as the Los Cienegos National Conservation Area, assuring their preservation and that nothing could be built on it. And that was through Jim Colby when he was in government. John and Mac Donaldson and Mac's son Sam continued their grazing lease with the BLM until 2009, when our fourth family, the Tomlinsons, assumed the lease. The Tomlinson family owns the Vera Earl Ranch Incorporated, which borders the Empire Ranch on the west and was established in 1968 by Burton and Betty Ann Beck. Ranching operations are managed by Ian Tomlinson, a grandson of the Becks. He and his wife, Kristen, and daughters Marin and Addison live in Sonoita. The historic ranch buildings, unoccupied since 1988, had deteriorated and required help to save them. In 1998, a group of private citizens working in partnership with the BLM formed the Empire Ranch Foundation as a volunteer 501c3 charitable organization. The Empire Ranch Foundation is dedicated to preserving and interpreting the Empire Ranch historic buildings and surrounding landscape for further generations. Within a year of the establishment, the foundation had become heavily involved in preservation work, as well as its partnership and assistance agreement with the BLM. A Save America's Treasures matching grant launched a major project to perform critical emergency repairs to deteriorated foundations, walls, and roof systems in the main ranch house. The federal grant funds were fully matched with private funding raised by the foundation, and BLM provided another $100,000 additional funding. Next, emergency repairs to important outbuildings were undertaken. Work on the stone corral included anchoring the roof, installing new support posts, and re-pointing deteriorated mortar. The historic adobe hay barn repairs straightened and sealed huge cracks in the two leaning walls and the gable, restored eroded foundations, repaired a falling corner, and tied down the roof. That barn was created in 1880. At the ranch hands house, deteriorated east wall foundations and brick were erected and foundations were strengthened. The south barn was replumbed and rebraced to correct leaning, and missing metal roofing was replaced. This is where the south corral and the south barn were used in Red River when John Wayne had his famous fight. In 2007, attention returned to the ranch house, where the foundations of the west wall of the master bedroom and bath of the Victorian addition were repaired, and the lintel and gable were reinforced and anchored. Subsequently, old carpet, asbestos tile, and linoleum in the living, dining room, and kitchen were removed. The lintel at the south end of the Zagwan was reinforced by the installation of a steel beam in 2010. Between 2011 and 2013, the Huachuca House was rehabilitated to serve as a welcoming visitors contact center, station, and a gift shop, and providing space for the foundation to hold meetings. In 2015, a project to stabilize the adobe hay barn was completed. That's the inside of it. The sliding door on the south side of the hay barn was rehung in 2017. In 2017, the Empire Ranch House Stabilization Project began to reinforce the foundations in several areas, secure the tops of the walls for structural strength, repair interior and exterior wall surfaces, replace the roof on the Victorian addition, and rehabilitate the children's addition to make it safe for visitors. The project was completed in the summer of 2018. So they put a big fence around that house, and we could not even get near it. A corps of dedicated volunteers with training and supervision from BLM staff have devoted thousands of hours to smaller preservation projects. Volunteer days are held the first Saturday of most months. We are the largest group of volunteer hours with the BLM every year. It saves them, last year I think the total was it saved them almost $80,000 the number of hours that we work. BLM and the foundation work together for cultural resources, preservation, and adaptive reuse in interpretation. Through this partnership, we have researched the history of the ranch, developed plans for its preservation and interpretation, and have driven the implementation